Listening into that interview with Social Development Minister Carmel Sepuloni. Minister, thank you very much for being with us. Why is this review being kept so secret? Why can't the Human Rights Commission see that? Why can't the public see that?
We only announced yesterday, and we've only recently had the emergency housing review actions actually agreed to by Cabinet, and so that Cabinet paper will be released today, and the Human Rights Commissioner will get all of that information.
But if there was enough time to write a press release in one side of A4, then it's been analysed. I don't understand why it couldn't be something that the Human Rights Commission couldn't see in time for their report.
I actually agree, and I think we probably should have released it yesterday, but it will be released today, and he'll get all of that information. And we do look forward to his feedback and appreciate the fact that he has reviewed emergency housing. It is important that we have an external view of what's going on and an internal view, and I think that he will find that our way forward does respond to much of the feedback that he's given.
How is it acceptable that we have an emergency housing system that is in breach of human rights?
Well, first, just reflecting on what the Human Rights Commissioner said, he acknowledged that we've had decades of underinvestment in housing, and that's what's led us here. Yes, but he also said there are
breaches of human rights here. How is that acceptable? I mean, it's all very well to say that we've made gains, but there is no acknowledgement of the fact that for some people, for 2 or 3-year-olds, they've only ever lived in a motel.
What you'll see in the review is actually we are responding to much of what he said. Agree, there needs to be minimum standards for suppliers. Some are very good, some not so much. The conditions that some of our clients have spoken about is not acceptable. We did put a complaints procedure in place because when we inherited the system from the previous national government, there was no complaints function at all. People had no ability to be able to necessarily be transferred when they were in inappropriate accommodation, but they do now.
But what
and the
this
steps through
government
the
has
emergency
also
housing
done,
review
Minister,
that we've announced.
What this government has also done is taken away that accountability, so it's taken away the ability for people in emergency housing to go to a tenancy tribunal.
We never took that away because that was not one of the rights that they had with emergency accommodation. It's a different arrangement. It is an emergency housing special needs grant that they are accessing through MSD. Often they will choose where they go based on their circumstances, and sometimes it's not the ideal situation with regards to the options that are available. And so we have traversed lots of this through the review. It is very thorough, and so there are lots of elements that I think, as I said, really do respond to the concerns raised by the Human Rights Commissioner.
And there is a press release that has come out this morning. You've put out more than half of New Zealand families with kids are better off. For the people, though, that the Human Rights Commission is talking about who are living in conditions that is in breach of human rights, a press release saying, well, there are a whole lot of families that are better off isn't going to help them, is it?
Well, it's 5 years since the Families Package was introduced, and so that's what that press release was about, which is separate from what we're talking about with emergency housing. What we need to see is progress in this space, and I do want to mention that compared to a year ago, we've got 1,500 less households in emergency accommodation. We are seeing progress in areas like Rotorua that have been hot spots, that have been major concerns for us in the community, and we need to continue to see that, and we will see that progress with the recommendations that are in our review.
When are motels going to be stopped being used as emergency housing? Do you have a timeline? Do you have a goal to stop doing that?
Oh, certainly as soon as possible, but I don't want to put a time frame on it, Melissa, because we've got to keep building the houses. As Paul mentioned, our government has taken seriously building the houses that are needed by New Zealanders. We're seeing the public housing register come down because of that. We're seeing fewer people in emergency accommodation because of that, and we've just got to keep doing the mahi.
Do you think that this is, you know, you've been able to stop doing mixed use accommodation in Rotorua, so it's possible to pull back on it? Do you think you can stop using motels in a year, 2 years? What kind of time frame are we talking?
I'm certainly not going to put a time frame on it, but I will say as part of the emergency housing review, we'll be looking at a similar place-based model to what we have in Rotorua with Wellington and Hamilton, which are other areas where we have some concerns, and working with councils, with iwi, with the social service providers to get that right.
Social Development Minister Carmel Sepuloni, thank you very much for being with us and responding to that report this morning.